This motion picture is a factual documentary dramatization based on the testimony of thousands of people all over the United States in all walks of life and in age levels from 18 to 50. In order to protect identities, names and circumstances have been altered. It is reliably estimated that over 200 million people throughout the world are at present using marijuana. United Nations report. The year was 1951. Marijuana comes from the flowering tops and leaves of the hemp plant Cannabis sativa. It has been known to man for almost 5,000 years. The origin of its use as an intoxicant can be traced back to China, where it was used to relieve pain during surgery. It was grown for centuries in the United States as a source of rope and cloth fibers, bird seeds, certain essential oils, and medicinal products. It was a cash crop for many farmers, including, it is said, George Washington at his Mount Vernon farm. From its origin in China, where it was called the delight giver, the fast-growing weed crept into India, where the culture of hemp became a science. A sticky resin forms on the top leaves before the plant is fully grown. In order to collect this precious substance without destroying the rest of the plant, completely naked men were driven with whips, pell-mell through the rows of plants. Whatever resin stuck to their sweaty bodies was scraped off and turned into hashish, a more powerful version of marijuana itself. Medical uses of marijuana in America date back to 1840. Until it was declared illegal in 1937, the drug had been used successfully by generations of doctors for relief of cough, rheumatism, asthma, migraine, chronic alcoholism, mental depression, epileptic fits, itching of eczema, menstrual discomfort, and as an aphrodisiac. Man's search for an aphrodisiac that really works goes back thousands of years. Actually, when man started out, there was no need for a sexual stimulant. Courtships were very simple. If a man wanted a sex partner, he reached out and took her, fornicating openly and in front of everyone else who happened to be in the neighborhood. He had no hang-ups. As civilization progressed, man became more inhibited. What he once did openly now went on only behind closed doors. His mind became closed as well. Social and interpersonal pressures caused many men to become impotent, unable to have sex. Today, sex is no longer a forbidden subject. Men and women both want to enjoy the widest range of sexual pleasure that is available, as is their right. Is it any wonder they search for an aphrodisiac which will stimulate the desire for sex in the most beautiful way possible? Aphrodisiac, a substance contributing to a sensuous state of euphoria which excites sexual desire. It is claimed the chief effect of marijuana is to cause the user to feel euphoric, and something else.
I got the goodies, honey.
This is a cocktail party, a great American tradition. Here, friends can get together in a relaxed social atmosphere and have fun. So it would seem that alcohol for centuries has served man well as an intoxicant and as a means to dull the attacks of conscience that can psychologically cripple most of us. This is a marijuana party. It is fast becoming a new American tradition. The reasons for having the party are the same. Friends getting together to have fun.
That's very good.
The mic's good.
New relationships are made here as well,
Oh, it feels so wonderful.
probably more easily, since there is a feeling of openness and sharing between the smokers.
So when he finished painting her breasts, he stepped back and said, "Honey, if I didn't know better, I'd say you were cross-eyed."
Euphoria seems to be everywhere. And all the senses seem to be heightened.
Oh, this food is really fantastic.
Food, smells, touch, music, all contribute to the enjoyment of the evening. The intoxication they feel from the marijuana is an entirely different kind of high than one gets with alcohol. But obviously alcohol and now marijuana have been used by millions of people as a loosening device to help their sex lives.
Are you kidding? He couldn't get it up. He was so bombed by the time I left my husband, he couldn't have made it with Raquel Welch. That son of a bitch just had too much booze.
I'm sold. Marijuana is the greatest sexual stimulant since they invented the 12-inch penis. And a hell of a lot easier to find.
I can screw much longer on grass. This was a big surprise to me. I never understood why my relationship with girls never lasted very long. Apparently I was a wham bam thank you ma'am kind of lover. My own secretary turned me on to the joys of being able to bawl for an hour or more. Pot really opened my head about sex. I'm a much better lover now. A more adventurous, you know? And it stays with me even when I'm straight, not on grass. In my opinion, anyone who has a sexual hang-up should at least try marijuana.
Not everyone agrees. In our country, the popular discovery of marijuana as a safe euphoric began among the poor minority groups. During Prohibition, when liquor was not easily available, many people discovered it was cheaper and less harmful to smoke the dried leaves of the hemp plant. It was stimulating and relaxing, completely non-toxic and non-addictive as opposed to alcohol or heroin. Strangely enough, nobody in the United States government made a big fuss over the lowly hemp plant until the early 1930s. By that time, Prohibition was repealed and alcohol was flowing freely again. Only the people who began to use grass when liquor was scarce realized it was cheaper, quicker, and had no bad hangover effect. So they stayed with weed and began to tell their friends. In 1930, the government established the Federal Bureau of Narcotics. Why it was done at this particular time is a mystery. Harry J. Anslinger was appointed its chief.
The Treasury Department intends to pursue a relentless warfare against the despicable, dope-peddling vulture who preys on the weakness of his fellow men.
For the next 7 years, Mr. Anslinger warned against the killer drug.
And I say marijuana is a killer drug.
Every newspaper, popular magazine, and radio station throughout the country carried the scare campaign. Meanwhile, sales of liquor boomed. In 1937, under public pressure generated by Bureau propaganda, Congress passed the Marijuana Tax Act, making possession a crime, and the spectacle was on. Thousands of underprivileged people were thrown into jail during carefully staged.
Over here.
Masses of marijuana were seized and publicly burned for the cameras of newspapers and newsreels all over the world. There remained one man, however, who was not convinced by the hysteria. Fiorello H. LaGuardia, mayor of the great city of New York. LaGuardia remembered a report from the Army Board of Inquiry saying they had found the drug relatively harmless among soldiers in the Canal Zone. In 1938, the mayor consulted the distinguished New York Academy of Medicine. He asked them to make a thorough study of marijuana use in New York City and to report their findings to him. A committee of 28 dedicated scientists began a series of very comprehensive laboratory tests on every aspect of the drug, including its effect on the user. Published in 1944, the 212-page report remains to this day as the only controlled, carefully documented study of marijuana in the field. Its conclusions are very interesting.
Marijuana is not directly responsible for any criminal or sexual misbehavior. Using marijuana will not itself cause physical or mental degeneracy. Habitual smokers will not overuse the drug because they know too large a dose can act as a depressant. Marijuana is not medically addicting, nor does it cause physical withdrawal problems like opiates do. So-called juvenile delinquency does not stem from the use of marijuana. No one has ever died from just smoking marijuana.
This report has been suppressed to the point where copies are practically unobtainable. As a result of the 1937 Tax Act and the 1956 Narcotic Control Act, it has become impossible for doctors to prescribe the beneficial uses of the drug as they did for centuries. Nor can research scientists investigate the proven therapeutic application that could help mankind conquer disease.
Don't even need marijuana anymore. Once she relaxed and forgot all that crap her mother fed her for years, we've had a great sex life.
Pot can be dangerous if you're with the wrong people. Like, if you agree to go to a guy's pad and get it on, well, that's as good as saying you'll ball him. So, better be careful who you smoke with.
A researcher studying marijuana reactions in adults under a research grant says,
Our studies have shown that most people over 30 who were raised with strong negative warnings about dope have an almost psychotic reaction when they try it. After all, if you've heard pot turns you into a junkie all your life, you can't expect to dig it the first time out.
a psychiatrist says,
your own mental state has a lot to do with your reaction to pot. If you think it will make you very nervous and tense, then that's exactly what will happen to you. I know one man who thought he would die if he used grass, and the first time he tried it, he actually got physically sick.
Pot can have other effects. The property of time expansion can hamper driving judgment. This is bad. Already, half of the 53,000 traffic deaths each year occur in accidents in which people had been drinking alcohol. Of course, another 20,000 people die every year from diseases due to excessive use of alcohol. And another 5 million people are true medical problems of varying degrees because of their alcoholism. However, let's stick to the bad effects of marijuana. The worst effect grass can have is to put you in jail for from 2 to 40 years, just for carrying it. It is an illegal drug. Another claim often made by the anti-pot community is that continued use can only lead to the hard drugs, opium, heroin, LSD. The former head of the federal government's drug abuse program reports only 1% of the habitual daily users of marijuana goes on to other drugs. As for physical harm, this authority states, it's pretty obvious with the large number of users that there is not much acute damage being caused. Much is made of the psychological dependence an habitual user can develop for marijuana. What is not known is how unfavorably this compares with other habituating habits formed by products widely advertised and condoned by the federal government. And marijuana contains no evidence of carcinogens, which is suspected of causing cancer.
Do you feel it's an aphrodisiac?
It depends on the mood you're in. It's not always an aphrodisiac. Sometimes you just fall asleep.
We can only assume the secret of marijuana's sexual power was passed from campus to campus starting in the early 60s. Before then, alcohol was the tool used to relax the inhibitions of college girls away from the watchful eyes of their parents. Let's see what has happened since then.
course I've had sexual intercourse on pot. This is the age of freedom for the individual. It was a very heavy, meaningful experience.
Nobody knows for sure how many people smoke marijuana. According to one estimate, between 8 and 20 million Americans have tried it. A recent Life magazine article guessed between 7% and 85% of the soldiers in Vietnam turn on when not on duty. It remained for Playboy magazine to do a definitive poll and set the record straight, at least in colleges. In 1970, Playboy conducted one of the largest student opinion polls ever taken. A survey of nearly 200 campuses across the country, 7,300 students interviewed. Here's what they found. 47%, nearly half, of those interviewed said they had used marijuana. Here's another bombshell. Kinsey reported 49.4% of the males and 73% of the females in his college samples had not had premarital intercourse by age 21. Is it any wonder grass slipped off the campuses and into the homes of many professional people who were tuned in to the youth scene? So you can recognize which of your friends is ahead, here's a cook's tour of pot. This is a kilo of dried leaves, stems, and seeds. This uncleaned key will just about fill the box when it's unwrapped. A kilo is 2.2 pounds or 35.2 ounces. It sells in New York for between $175 and $250, and in Los Angeles between $90 and $140. The closer to Mexico, the cheaper. This is a lid, an ounce of uncleaned grass. It sells for between 10 and 20 bucks, depending on where and the current market. If you buy a kilo for $100 and sell 35 lids for $10 each, that's a profit of $250 and a stiff jail sentence if you're caught. The majority of imported grass comes into this country from Mexico. It is smuggled across the border in a variety of ingenious ways. Shoved up mufflers, stuffed in gas tanks, hidden in cars, baby diapers, pumpkins, toys, shot across the border by arrows, boats, airplanes. Someone even tried a submarine. Pot can also be homegrown. Trouble is, it takes 4 months, and is the devil to hide. Plants can grow 20 feet high, easy to spot from the air. Rolling cigarettes by hand is a tricky business. You don't want it too thin or it will burn too fast. And not too fat, or you'll waste more grass than you need to get high. Of course, you first clean the marijuana with a strainer. Cigarette paper is sold everywhere and comes in all flavors. Imagine strawberry pot.
You know what this is?
Yeah, that's an American flag.
It is, huh?
Wrapped up. Oh, no, that's, holy God, that's a marijuana.
Right.
Wrapped up in an American flag.
Right.
Yeah.
If you ever smoke one, you don't have to be afraid.
Want to be honest, truthfully? I tried one about 30 years ago, and I ate 3 steaks, T-bone steaks, 3 orders of French fried potatoes, 3 hunks of apple pie, 3 cups of coffee, and 3 orders of toast. that was what brought me, and I said, no, not for me. I didn't want to get fat.
All right, how about liquor? Do you drink liquor?
Once in a while.
Do you think it's an aphrodisiac?
No.
Do you think it's a depressant?
It's a depressant.
You think it would enhance or depress your sex?
It would depress the sexual.
But
And when you're out like this, how can you go when you're loaded?
Is this familiar to you?
Yes?
What is it?
I think it's the American flag.
The age of automation has come forth with an inexpensive machine for klutzes who can't mimic Randolph Scott or Joel McRae in rolling their own. It turns out a very satisfactory joint, but it's not as much fun. Of course, if you are really lazy, you can empty a filter cigarette down to about a 1/4 inch of tobacco. This is to eliminate having to throw away a good roach, and fill it with grass. To save the roach or last 1/4 inch of pot, there are various tools: clips, holders, tweezers, hairpins, and even a paper match. There are pros and cons on the use of pipes. Some say they burn too fast and smell if they're not cleaned often. They do cool the smoke. The hookah, or water pipe, is the ultimate in cooling pot smoke for utmost enjoyment. A few enterprising souls make their own coolers. Experts say that eating cooked grass is absolutely the best way to use it. Don't eat it without cooking it or you'll get sick.
Everything's just great.
This is the easiest method of eating pot. Fry over a low to medium fire for about 5 minutes, stirring to avoid burning. It is done when it begins to turn brown and wisps of smoke appear. Let it cool a few minutes, then grind into a powder. Now you can do anything you want with it. Put it in ice cream, butter, milkshakes, jello, anything which doesn't require cooking. Put it in honey and freeze it into squares for later. The traditional method of cooking is to make cookies or brownies. Just remember one thing. When cooking, you must use a large amount of marijuana since the heat seems to dissipate the effect. Don't worry about putting in too much. According to a recent experiment, the amount needed to kill a mouse is 40,000 times the amount it takes to get a man high. So a lethal dose for a man might be 100 pounds of grass eaten all at once. Well, so much for the usage. Now let's find out about the future of marijuana.
It is obvious that the practice of smoking marijuana will continue no matter what laws are passed against it. The drug is too inexpensive, too easily available, and too effective as a euphoriant and de-inhibitor. As for the popular belief that marijuana is a sexual stimulant or aphrodisiac, the drug does influence sexual response by releasing restraints and thus permitting greater freedom of participation by the user. And the desire for sex and stimulation to the act, however, must originate with the individual. There's a danger of pot being legalized. If it were brought under government control, like the tobacco industry, and a uniformly mild type sold in stores, the underworld would be forced to push the harder stuff. That would be far worse. We had a sample of this in 1969 when Operation Intercept went into effect at the Mexican border. With no marijuana coming in, the pushers did a big business in hash and heroin. These are the true killer drugs. Must guard against this happening again. What is needed is more research into the effects of marijuana. If this drug is really an aphrodisiac, or has aphrodisiacal properties, it could be of tremendous benefit to science and mankind in bettering human relations. Perhaps something could be done to help the estimated 50% of women who have trouble reaching a climax, or the large percentage of men who suffer from premature ejaculation, or even homosexuality and lesbianism. If enough upper and middle class adults became pot users, who knows what would happen. You permit automobiles on the road which poison the air, liquor to be available that attacks the human body, and firearms sold to anyone who has the money.
Step back. Back. Don't shout. Back. Back.
Isn't it possible we may relent enough to allow an adult to legally smoke marijuana in his own home?